begin in a few moments. May we also request the panelists for our next session to join us here on stage. Right, thank you very much, everyone. This is our afternoon session for day two, the last stretch of our conference. So I hope we are all ready. So our next session is a special session on climate and agriculture. Let me briefly introduce the one who will be chairing this session. Professor Dhananjay Singh is the Member Secretary of Indian Council of Social Science Research and Chairman of the Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology, Ministry of Education, New Delhi. Presently, he is also the President of AASSREC. He completed his BA and MA in English from Arunachal University, securing the gold medal, and completed his MPhil and PhD in English from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, specializing in literary and cultural studies. He represented the country at the 42nd General Conference on Social and Human Sciences of UNESCO in Paris. He also participated in the Global Forum on Ethics of Artificial Intelligence organized by UNESCO in collaboration with the government of Slovenia at Bardo, Slovenia. He also served as the director of the National Council for Promotion of Urdu Language, Ministry of Education, New Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Dhananjay Singh.
Thank you so much for those kind words. I'm really extremely delighted to be among three very reputed scholars on agriculture. And as I was talking to my dear friend Max as to how do I fit in here with this responsibility. And then I thought perhaps apart from being with ICSSR and leading some studies, of course, more than hundreds of them on agriculture and sustainability, I also happen to be a son of a farmer. So I said, as a community member, I'm here. And therefore, I will be participating here as somebody who comes from the family of a farmer, and with curiosity to listen to them and listen to each one of you. In all our countries in the Indo-Pacific, I think more than 70% of the nations are agriculture dependent. India, of course, in a major way. 45% of the workforce is in agriculture, but there's a great deal of concern about the contribution of agriculture to GDP. When it comes to agriculture in India, as in the Indo-Pacific, it's a very sensitive topic. Climate crisis, climate adaptability, cultural context, regional and local issues dominate some of the discourses on agriculture and sustainability. And small farmers become very important. Migration, of course, is a great effect of farm stress. And more cultural, social discourses in India are about small farmers. My father himself was a small farmer. I remember when I was studying in JNU, as Adam was saying, I write a bit of poetry. Father, remember the night, dear little sister, the third one, had died by her mother's side. We sat on our haunches around her to cry, but you escaped smartly to sell your cow for her rights. Father, remember the night. Isn't it too late, Father, to begin a new dream? Isn't it too late, Father, to take the stress when your ribs shake out of your chest? Will the harvest be fine this time? Oh, Father, the flood waits to drown your fields yet again. Or there was a farmer in my village, a village of barren lands, though he tilled and tilled and tilled, for hope eased his hands, and the green paddy fields woke him up in the middle of his sleep. But he tilled and tilled and tilled, till he smelled of the earth and the sky. And it ends, he was found that one day on his land, his head was bent with the yoke of hunger and his eyes with the wet of rain. So I represent those small farmers here, and I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Ashok Vishandass. Professor Ashok Vishandass is Professor of Applied Economics at the Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi, with over 39 years of distinguished service across Government of India ministries, including Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, MOSPI, Health, Chemicals and Fertilizers, and Rural Development. As former chairman of the Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices, at the secretary level, he has played a central role in shaping MSP, agricultural pricing, and related policy frameworks. He previously served as Chief Technical Advisor at the FAO of the United Nations, where he provided strategic guidance on food security, SDGs, and agricultural marketing, and authored 8 flagship reports. A gold medalist in statistics, Dr. Vishandass holds a PhD in agricultural economics and MA in economics from the University of Manchester, an MBA in financial management, and a PG diploma in population and development. He's also a life member of several professional bodies, including GROW, IIPA, IER-NIW, ICSSR, and ISAS. The next speaker to introduce is Professor Sachin Sharma, my dear old friend from JNU, if I may say so. Professor Sachin Sharma is the Director General of the Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS. With over 2 decades of work on international trade, development cooperation, and multilateral negotiations, he has contributed significantly to global discussions on agricultural subsidies, food security, sustainability, aid for trade, LDC graduation, and WTO and G20 processes. A leading expert on trade policy, he has authored 6 books, numerous peer-reviewed articles, and several policy papers, and is widely engaged in global forums and national policy making. His analytical work and evidence-based recommendations have been extensively used by developing countries and LDCs in WTO negotiations, including on domestic support, public stockholding, and spatial differential treatment. He has also played a key role in shaping G33 positions and advancing South-South cooperation. Before joining RIS, he served as professor at the Center for WTO Studies, where he led multidisciplinary teams and advised governments on trade and development issues. Professor Sharma has represented India at the last 5 WTO ministerial conferences and conducted capacity building programs for policymakers across the global south. He holds an MPhil and PhD in economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, specializing in WTO, international trade, and quantitative techniques. Our third distinguished speaker today, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar Mishra, again a fellow Genuite. Himanshu Shekhar Mishra is a senior journalist and one of India's leading voices in disaster management and public policy reporting. As senior editor at NDTV India, he has covered major national events, governance issues, climate-related risk, and crisis responses for over 2 decades, earning a reputation for rigorous field reporting and insightful analysis. He is a member of the Oxford Climate Journalism Network 2024 at the Reuters Institute for Study of Journalism, University of Oxford, where he contributed to strengthening climate reporting, risk communication, and the role of media in resilience building. Mishra's work spans television news, disaster journalism, and development communication, with a focus on early warning systems, climate adaptation, and public accountability. His reportage has helped shape national conversations on disaster preparedness and relief frameworks and climate-induced vulnerabilities. A respected newsroom leader, he is known for his calm on-ground presence during crisis, ability to distill complex issues for public audiences, and commitment to ethical, fact-driven journalism. Dear friends, join me in welcoming our three distinguished speakers, and we all look forward to a very great diversity of panel for a great discussion. So may I therefore first request Professor Ashok Vishandass to make his presentation here.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon once again to all the participants, delegates, and the panelists, distinguished panelists. See, agriculture is the lifeblood of India's economy. It's a huge aeroplane, but without fuel. Why it is huge aeroplane? Because it employs 46% of India's workforce, 60% of its total geographical land, 83% of fresh water, yet it gives just less than 15%, to be precise, 14.7% of GDP. So it extracts the huge resources, but not with commensurate returns in that sense. But it is necessity. We have burnt our fingers in the past, therefore we wanted to be self-sufficient. And I will just trace briefly how India experienced its difficulty and why food security is important. And agriculture has a very strong relation with the climate change that is taking place. All of us are aware. But let me briefly take you back in the history of agriculture in independent India. When India became independent, they say in 1950-51, the contribution of agriculture to the GDP was 51%. That means more than half. Therefore, India is called agrarian society. And having said that, but at that time it was 51% of our GDP. We have come all the way 75 years, and then the contribution of agriculture today is just 14.7%. The production of food grain has increased from 51 million tons in 51. Now it's 354 million tons. Now question arises, does the higher production guarantees the higher income level? Because the policymaker in agriculture used to have emphasis on increasing the production. Yes, in one sense it was good because you had to be self-sufficient. And we burnt our finger in the mid-60s when we used to depend heavily for our wheat under PL 480 on USA. Now, USA abruptly stopped the shipment, and because we were from ship to mouth at that time, because of reasons other than the agriculture, and it was a political. So we learned our lesson very hard way. And when this happened, and USA wanted some kind of concession for themselves, to be very precise. They wanted India's support in their war against Vietnam. India's national interest did not suit it. They sided with Vietnam as a retaliation. They stopped the. So we learned the lesson. So the short point I want to underscore is food cannot be seen as mere satiating the calorie requirement and your hunger. It can be used as an instrument of arm twisting in international diplomacy. And we have seen in the COVID, it was the only sector which performed in positive growth rate compared to the secondary and tertiary, which all went in the red zone, that is negative. And despite that, we were, because our policy, India's policy is benevolent and even not a precisely friendly country, we help them. We made the key supply, food supply to countries like Turkey, which is not particularly friendly to India. Regardless of our relation, our outlook is very, very benevolent. Doesn't matter whether friend, foe, we help. And that is the way India's philosophy. And India has very, very good credentials that we support the countries regardless of our personal ideology, philosophy, and whatever. If a person needs food, we are here to supply. So short point is, we traveled a long distance from net food importing country to self-sufficiency and then to net food exporting country. Here we export about more than 50 billion worth of US dollars export, and we target in next 3-4 years, I think it will be $100 billion, and that is very, very important. And next 22 years, when the Prime Minister of India has given nation a call that we become Viksit Bharat, and agriculture's contribution has to be, and it will be very, very significant and remarkable, and because of our policy. Now the question arises, can we sustain, because agriculture and many other things do not move in a linear fashion. What has happened is no guarantee that the future will also unfold in the similar fashion, so we have to. Now the climate, the intensity, the frequency and duration of aberrant weather condition due to climate change is for everybody to see, and it has not happened in the past long in our history, but we are going to face this, and we together collectively had to find the solution how to deal with. Not only we have to recognize the aberrant weather condition which directly impinges on the performance of agriculture, how to recognize those, negotiate those challenges of climate change and manage them, and how to overcome those things. And this is one of the important, I didn't attend last year, but I'm sure all must have deliberated the impact of this climate change on agriculture. Now, climate change is a reality. We cannot shut our eyes, but then who will finance that? Climate change, it requires a huge investment, and those who are the ones who cause the climate change are not willing to finance the mitigation measures. Now, this is a big challenge because nothing comes free in this world, but the question is who finances. We have so many things to handle on the climate change condition, and the question is how we have to see the farmers' welfare. If farmers are not happy, doesn't matter what happens, we cannot progress and we cannot achieve the status of developed nation by 2047, which is just 22 years in between. In a history of a nation, 22 years is not a big period, but it is neither a small period, and we have to jointly put our heads together to find a credible and doable solution to see that climate change is suitably handled, and agriculture see a growth rate at least as high as non-agriculture. And let me also add, as of now, that productivity of agriculture in India is about 29% of non-agriculture. This is not a very happy situation, and we have to find solution, and climate change is one of the reasons. There are other reasons. We have to make agriculture more sustainable, and we should not, because India's policy, according to me, has been concentrated on tonnage-centric, that means increase the production, and policy, agriculture policy, implicitly assume that the increase in production will automatically lead to increase in the farmer's income, and the data, at least official data on situation assessment survey of farmer do not support that hypothesis. That means the production increase does not guarantee the increase in the income level. And to me, the income of farmers is the key performance indicator. Other things can take the back seat, but we have never factored in the farmer's income for so many years, only on recently, during last 8, 10 years, we are talking of the farmer's income, and then we have to go a long way. So I will pause here. I will, and in case required, I will come back again. And so I will request the organizer to invite the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Vishandass. Now, may I request Professor Sachin Sharma to make his presentation? Oh, yeah, sure.
I have 10 minutes? 10? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Like in Hindi, we say that bhuke pet bhajan na hoy gopala. So before the lunch, it's very difficult to do the concentration. But there is also, I can add this, that even after the lunch, with a full stomach, even it's very difficult to do the concentration, given the sleepy faces behind. So this is the one thing I wanted to add. Okay, the topic is about, the overall theme is about sustainable future. And within that, the session theme is climate and agriculture. Let I pose one question. Who opposes sustainability? All we want sustainability. No government, no civil society, all researchers, all we want is sustainability. But then why we are here? Why there are different approaches of sustainability? So these are some of the issues which I am going to discuss in another 6-7 minutes. But before I start, I would like to thank Professor Dhananjay, my panelist and organizer, to invite me for this very important event. Now let's start with climate and agriculture. What's the relation between climate and agriculture? I think this is a circular relation. Like climate impact agriculture, whether you see the drought situation, fires, then flooding, then also agriculture also contribute towards the climate change as well, due to the emission contributions as well. Now, given my experience, 15 years I negotiated agriculture at the WTO. All agree, whether it's a developing country, whether developed country or least developed country, across the world, all wanted sustainability. But the problem arises about the definition and approaches towards sustainability. For some countries, sustainability means the weightage which is given for environment. Some other countries, they give weightage to more on socio-economic dimension of sustainability. One aspect Professor Ashok had mentioned about food security. So there are different approaches of sustainability, but we can't deny that there are a lot of problems happening. Whether in Australia you have fire, whether in the Bihar you have floods, in Africa you have the drought situation. Then about another component of sustainability is the food security. Even at the moment, like more than 700 million people are undernourished. And then countries have very different, you can say, problems. 3 months back, I was in Australia. Then when they were discussing about food security, they were discussing about obesity. When we are talking about here in India or African countries about undernourishment. So very different things are there. Now, what happened at the world level when I give the full picture? What I find that countries have very, very different approaches. Let's take with the European Union. In the European Union at the moment, they are implementing Green Deal. Within that, they wanted to give more emphasis on, you can say, environment dimension of sustainability. And one aspect is the European Union deforest regulation. In this, what they are trying to do that they give more weightage to the environment factors. For instance, what is the real implication of that regulation? If an Indian farmer wanted to export to the European Union in future, he has to give a certificate or he has to certify that this produce is not from the deforested area. Though it looks simple, but when it's come to the ground, it's a lot of problem. Who will certify it? Where to get the certificate? And whether and also in India, we have the millions of small farmers where we collect the goods based on from the farmers. It's not based on the farm from where it's collected. It's very difficult to get the traceability. So if that is the case, then it will be very, very different where environment measures become, you can say, green protectionism. In name of the sustainability, you are excluding millions of farmers across global south, whether it's a farmer who is growing cocoa in Ghana or Indian farmers. So this is the one aspect of the sustainability where a country give more emphasis on environment, but they are excluding the other dimensions, means social and economic dimensions. The other point, the sustainability and agriculture, when I'm talking about in the sense of the climate change, we also need to consider this fact about the situation of farmers in different countries. In Australia, I met one farmer. He was in distress, but when I asked him about his land holding size, he has the 700 hectare land holding size. The fact is that on an average farm size in Australia is more than 3,000 hectare. In India, we have the farm size of only 1 hectare. So situation is very different. If you see compare the institutional support or the kind of subsidies the countries are giving, if you are a farmer in the US, on an average, the subsidy, domestic subsidy per farmer is more than $80,000 in US. In India is around 400 to 500 US dollar. Things are very different. When we are talking about sustainability, there are situation also very different. In India, we have still many people who are suffering from undernourishment. And thanks to the Indian government, which is implementing the Food Security Act, through this we are covering massive food security program under the public distribution system. 800 million people, more than 800 million people, we are giving free food grains. That is the one aspect of the sustainability. That is the one aspect of the agriculture. Another important point, if you see, whether you take any country in this world, whether Indonesia, US, Australia, any African countries, no country leave their farmer at the mercy of market forces. This is the simple fact. Whatever we are saying that the market will take care, no. No country, even you go to the European Union, they are protecting their agriculture sector through the direct payments, through, you can say that non-tariff barriers, they are protecting. The Green Deal or the EUDR is another example. You go to the US, it is highly protective about agriculture sector. Even when some countries say that India is a tariff king in agriculture, I give you one fact that even the tariff on peanuts in the US is 164%. Only for peanuts I'm asking. Switzerland, the home to the WTO, they protect the agriculture sector by imposing tariff, custom duty on dairy more than 800%. Can you imagine? Japan on rice, all have. In Japan, more than 500%. So my point here is that countries' policy about sustainability, climate change and agriculture varies according to socio-economic situation what is prevailing there. It would be easy for Australia, even Australia if you go there, I say that very good biosecurity law is there, very high. it's very difficult even to export to Australia agriculture goods. This is also fact. But in many developing countries, it's where their non-tariff measures, you can say it's not up to the mark about maintaining the sustainability. In this whole background, now my question is that why we are discussing here in ICSSR conference. That's the another thing. The point here is that we are discussing that the young researchers, young scholars and the researchers, they do research in many aspects of this sustainability and agriculture. It's not about the climate change and agriculture. One important point, I will not go deep into it, which Professor Ashok already mentioned about the climate finance. Who will finance? Who will going to finance it about if the climate change and agriculture situation is there? But it may happen that some country they fund for the climate finance, but on the other hand, they also close the border for the farmers. Then its overall picture, you will say that we come to the zero, big zero. So here, rather than if you wanted to do fight against climate change, the fragmented measures or steps will not take us anywhere. We need to come together. If we wanted to come together, we do lot of collaboration, institutional-wise, research-wise, and lot of issues are there. How we'll do food security is one important component. Then the challenges of the farmers, small farmers, in across the global south is the another major component of this. How the Indo-Pacific countries, they can come together. The important point is that technology transfer is one of the main component which will also help us fight against climate change. But if we try to impose one country's narrative of sustainability on other, it is not going to help. If we say that, okay, let's go adopt the kind of agriculture practices in the European Union and impose here, it's not going to fly here. The socio-economic situation is very different. If the India's practices, we do the other, it also the same. We need to go and consider the socio-economic situation prevailing in that country. Rather than imposing, we need to try to understand what the communities are thinking. Many countries, if you go any country, whether Africa or in India or any Asian country, all are doing towards lot of things towards sustainability. We have the LIFE program. LIFE is there. We also promoting natural farming as well. Many countries are doing this. But yes, there are a lot of problems are also in agriculture across. We need to think about it. But to say that for the sustainability, we just focus only on the environment, it's not going to fly. That's my underlying, you can say, statement I would like to say. And similarly, when it's come to the discussion about agriculture subsidy, because this is the narrative is there that if agriculture subsidy, we should cut all the agriculture subsidy. Yes, there are a lot of issues, even in India we have. Water table going down, lot of issues are there. But before doing it, we also have to analyze the implication on the productivity and the production. Because India also have, where in the past, when we, in 1943, we had the big Bengal famine, where more than 3 million people died. We also have, Professor Ashok already mentioned, the kind of situation when you have no food security, then your national security also compromised. The example Professor Ashok has given. So these are some of the thoughts I wanted to share, but lot of issues are there to take it forward by the ICSSR. It should be that how we can fight against climate change by making all the stakeholders inclusive rather than excluding of the small farmers and marginal farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. Throughout this issues will come up for discussion. Now, may I request Mr. Himanshu Shekharji to make his presentation. He will start with a brief report based on his field reporting experience on the impact of climate change on farmers. Mr. Shekhar, so the floor is yours. Yeah. Okay.
Normal changes in weather are scaring farmers, and after the heat wave in April, farmers are now fearful of what lies ahead during the forthcoming Kharif season. Here's a report.
Wheat farmer Mahendra Singh is getting increasingly tense as climate change has begun to seriously impact farming in his village. He had sown wheat in his 1-acre farmland in the Gadana village of UP's Modi Nagar during the Rabi season this year. The unseasonal rain and hailstorm in March destroyed almost half of his wheat crop. The abnormal changes in weather have begun to scare him. After the heat wave in April, he is now fearful of what lies ahead during the forthcoming Kharif season. The Met Department has forecast a normal monsoon, but he says only God can save farmers.
In many parts of western Uttar Pradesh, the above normal temperature in February had a bad impact on wheat crops. And then the unseasonal rain and hailstorm in the month of March destroyed wheat crops in many parts. Mahendra Singh lost a significant part of his wheat crop in March, and he is now fearful of what will happen during the Kharif season.
गेहूं की फसल बर्बाद हो गई है, उसमें हमें काफी नुकसान रहा, जबकि वो 11-12 मन बीघे की निकलनी थी, उसमें 6-7 मिला, 6-7 मन बीघे का मिला, और उससे काफी परेशान है। आगे की फसल में मौसम में बदलाव है, कभी घटा आ जाती है, कभी ज्यादा धूप आ जाती है, उससे जो काफी परेशानी है, उसमें ये है कि पता नहीं क्या होगा आगे।
Just a few yards from Mahendra Singh's farm, Shamuddin is harvesting the ready wheat crop.
तूने कभी सोचा था दोनों भाई ऐसे दुबई के किसी बीच क्लब पे चिल कर रहे होंगे, एंजॉय कर रहे होंगे?
And hailstorm had also destroyed almost half of his crop last month, severely impacting output.
The unseasonal rainfall and hailstorm in the month of March had destroyed almost half of wheat crop in this field, and this has directly affected the yield of wheat from this field. कितना नुकसान हुआ है अगर आप प्रोडक्शन की बात करें?
50 मन गेहूं होनी चाहिए, 25 मन गेहूं होने इसमें, आधा से ज्यादा नुकसान है इसमें।
आधा से ज्यादा नुकसान है।
हाँ जी।
तो आधी से अधिक फसल गिर गई थी बारिश में, और अब जो पैदावार है वो भी आधी रह गई।
आधी रह गई, बस आधी फसल रह गई, नुकसान ज्यादा है।
The country's largest agricultural research think tank, the ICAR, or the Indian Agricultural Research Institute's director and one of the leading agricultural scientists in the country, Ashok Singh, told NDTV, the unseasonal rainfall and hailstorm in March did destroy the wheat crop in some regions of the country, but overall the impact on wheat crops remained favorable, as rainfall made the climate more conducive for growth of wheat crops. He also cited the official Agriculture Ministry data to substantiate his argument. He says that in 2021-22, the overall wheat production had marginally declined to 107.74 million tons versus the previous year because of a sudden increase in temperature between the 25th and 28th March. The Agriculture Ministry's second advanced estimates of production of important crops has projected the wheat production to increase by 5% to a record level of 112.18 million tons this year. Ashok Singh, though, admits the impact of climate change could become more visible in the coming years and affect the wheat output by 2040 if temperatures continue to rise over the next 17 years.
what is the assessment of Indian agricultural scientists about climate change? If there is a 1 degree Celsius average increase in coming decades, how does it affect the wheat yield? How much impact it will have on wheat yield?
We expect that by 2040 there will be average increase of 1 degree Celsius temperature during the wheat growing season. If this happens, then there could be about 5 to 6% loss in production. But if we use the climate resilient technology on which we are working extensively, and this adoption not only will cope up for that 5 to 6% loss, but has the potential to increase production up to 10 to 15%. Clearly, the challenge to deal with the impact of climate change on agriculture is likely to increase in the coming years. For the moment, farmers are bracing on the ground.
Thank you very much. That's a ground report, one of the first ground reports I did, because I always used to hear in Parliament, in cabinet briefings, everyone would talk about sustainability, climate change, policy making. But we just thought that we should do a series of stories on how these larger concepts that we discuss in universities and research institutions, how does that actually affect the common farmer on the ground? Now, Mahendra Singh is a former soldier and now a great friend of mine, because almost every 6 months I visit his home and we do go to his field to see how climate change is actually affecting his life. And it was indeed very disturbing, you know, when you go to this story was shot just 60 kilometers from where we are now, in Modi Nagar area, part of Ghaziabad district. And the visibility of the impact of climate change on farming is so clearly visible. It's just, you don't have to go too very far from Delhi. A poor farmer or a small farmer, as Dhananjay sir was saying, majority of the farmers are small farmers in this country, for whom there is a PM Kisan Samman Nidhi also that is being given, 2,000 rupees every 4 months. They take often loan and then they buy seeds, fertilizers, and then they sow their crops. So they make a lot of investment in every cropping season. It's a very complex business now to do farming. And then suddenly abrupt changes in weather happens, and then that destroys their standing crop. In this case, Mahendra Singh had tears in his eyes because 50% of his wheat crop was destroyed just a month before he was planning to harvest them. And this year also I went. Of course, that's a documentary in Hindi, so I did not share it. There was unseasonal rainfall that happened this year. And again, a part of his field crop actually had fallen because of unseasonal rainfall. And this is becoming a disturbing pattern in this country. Coming to whether all these changes that we see on the grounds, many important points have been made by Ashok sir, Sachin, whether that is becoming a part of the political discourse or not. Yes, it is part of the discourse. When I was preparing for my brief presentation here, I went to the Lok Sabha website, which is the lower house of Indian Parliament, which I cover. Go to the question and answer session, just write disasters in the search option. I found 32 questions in last 4 days alone. Today, of course, is Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, in just these 4 days, I found there were 32 questions that lawmakers had asked the government on disasters. And mostly the focus is on the rise in the intensity, rise in the frequency, rise in the scale of disaster incidents, and its debilitating impact on agrarian economy, on human lives, etc. This has been a very difficult monsoon season. We have seen monsoon arrive 10 days before its scheduled time. I think it arrived on 22nd May. Normally it arrives on 1st June, plus minus 3-4 days. But this time it came early. And the kind of mayhem that we have seen, the kind of disasters we saw
during the monsoon season, especially in mountainous states, was indeed very, very alarming. And remember, when a disaster comes, it doesn't only destroy lives and livelihood, it also destroys standing crops, it destroys agriculture, and creates a damage, especially during cyclones, for instance, which is very long-term damage to these standing crops. So I think, thank you very much, Dhananjay sir, for having this discussion here. This is a subject that we should deliberate more and more. I remember on the sidelines of G20 summit, when UN Secretary General was here, we had the privilege to meet him. And I told him that if there is one line, sir, that you have been frequently quoting in international forum, which I've used the most in my research, is that climate change is running much faster than we are. And that is actually the truth. It can be said about AI as well. We are not yet fully well versed with the kind of impact it is having, and while we are taking policy initiatives, there is a lot of gap that you see on the ground. I had also the privilege to make a research presentation at the UN World Conference, the third UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, where the Sendai framework was prepared. And when I was there watching the deliberations, a lot of focus again on agriculture, and a lot of things that Sachin sir and Dhananjay also have mentioned. The fact that these promises that are being made in global forums are not being implemented on the ground. Last thing about financing, I remember Environment Minister told Parliament of India there were at least 17 questions as to how much money India needs to attain the targets and the commitments it had made at the Paris Climate Conference and to implement the UN SDGs. The answer was $1 trillion. But the question is that from where a developing country like India will manage to access $1 trillion. So I think we need to focus more, because the impact of climate change, especially on food security, the last point I wish to make, just a few facts that have been tabled in Parliament in this session. I'll just quickly read this. In the absence of adoption of adaptation measures, climate change is likely to reduce rain-fed rice yields by 20% in 2050 and 10 to 47% in 2080 respectively. Irrigated rice yields likely to be reduced by 3.5% in 2050 and 5% in 2080. Wheat yield is also likely to get reduced by 19.3% in 2050 and 40% in 2080. Kharif maize yields may get reduced by 10 to 19% in 2050 and more than 20% in 2080. And remember, this is the time when these projections are very alarming. If the climate adaptation measures are not taken to the ground, the impact on food security can only be imagined. India's population, of course, we are the most populous country in the world already. And by 2050, of course, India's population would be far more than what it is today. So at a time when population size would be much bigger, if the food production continues to decline, or if it declines as is being projected now, that will be very, very alarming for maintaining and sustaining food security measures that we now have in place in India. So with that, I will end, and if you have any questions, you are welcome. I am ready to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. I thank each one of you for very precise presentations, even though we are overshooting the time, and prospective Professor Mattu has been already here. But important as it is, agriculture. I'm sure there are some questions. I think we need to take two questions, but I have a question for each one of you. Of course, as all three of you discussed that, where is the money going to come? Of course, the government needs to put in money to address some of these challenges. But doing research doesn't take much money as such. We are here, all research councils from being represented in the Indo-Pacific. The the questions are common, that agriculture continues to be the privilege, to be the priority in relation to services or industries, even though we're moving towards agro-based industries, MSMEs, etc., etc. We were primarily an agriculture-based economy, therefore we could sustain giving free food to 85% of our population during the pandemic. So in terms of social science research, in terms of future researchers as such, what would be some of your, or if you could come with one recommendation as to what kind of research is required to tackle climate change on agriculture and to give localized solutions. This is extremely important that we have, four of us have not mentioned that we are in Delhi and we have been suffering air pollution for a great time, and which I think all of our guests know. And a part of it is a response is because of the stubble burning. These solutions are very difficult to have, but solutions have to begin given from the researchers. So whether it's air pollution or the water pollution, of course, there's a study which shows that the uranium in Delhi water, the flood or the cyclone, how could local solutions be given by local researchers? I think that's one question I have to each one of you. And then I think I'll keep one question with me because we can take later on because of time constraint.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is a very pertinent question and it agitates everybody's mind, I am sure. If not everybody, at least over 99% people, this issue passes through everybody's mind and very pertinent. And if we go by the conventional method of climate mitigation, the cost is tremendously high and perhaps nobody is willing. There are two issues. One is the willingness to finance, other is the ability to finance. These are two different things. Some countries have ability to finance, but willingness is lacking. In contrast, India has a lot of willingness to finance, but their ability to finance that level is very, very limited. Having said, we have to find homegrown solution, not the, borrowed kind of thing. And the solution lies, you have to come to the original way of farming. That means you have to be almost free of the chemical fertilizer. And some people always question the productivity of organic farming is high. And it is high, I admit, but because our scale is very low. We have not yet reaped, not thought of reaping the benefits of economies of scale so far organic farming is concerned. It's not only climate change, but it affects individuals' health. Because health is a big issue, and its health is not that merely preventing you from dying. I don't think that's the health. But health is living in happiness, living able bodies, and without help of anybody, whether doctor or your near and dear one. If you are able to move at your own and doing all the activities at your own, whatever you do, then it's a living. I don't think the data will show, the government data everywhere show the number of death and things like that. That is a poor indicator of your health. Absence of disease is also not a good health. It's living in vibrant, and that is assured when you eat the good food. And I tell you, many doctors have, I served in health ministry also, and then I knew many expert doctors, and they say the pollution, and it's not affects only your respiration, but also your metabolism. Every part of the body gets affected, which whether you realize or not. So at the end of the round, it is urgent. It's not, we cannot afford to postpone the solution. Problem is real, and we cannot have the ostrich policy yes. So these are the things we have to probe. No easy solution, but it's doable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dhananjay, for your question. One or 2 points. In one point, I differ a bit that it's very difficult to go full organic because no, no. Yes, that's what. Yeah, that's what. Now there need to be balance. We also need to promote the organic, but also we need to see the point which Professor Ashok have mentioned, that we also see that if we are shifting towards the organic, but the implication of the productivity, this is the one research area which we have to do. Second, the thing is that we also have to do the research about the sustainability practices across different countries, what kind of sustainability practices they are doing, and whether these practices can be adapted. And this is one good research area which ICSSR can do it. And then what are the challenges the farmers are facing in different countries? I always, sometimes I read it and also say also in many conferences that if farmers are in red, they will not go green. If they are not profitable in the profession, whatever we preach, whatever the recommendation we'll give, they will not going to adopt the sustainability measures. These are the things we also need to give weightage. And yes, there are a lot of issues are there. I already mentioned that the angle from how the sustainability measures or climate measures have the impact on other countries. This is the one important topic which can be considered.
A very short intervention. As I said that every year in the monsoon, I visit India Meteorological Department office many times for data, and again and again we are being told that there is a variability in the monsoon rainfall pattern, and that is affecting agriculture in the sense that there are cropping cycles of different crops, and which over the last centuries had evolved according to the cropping pattern in different regions of the country. So as the rainfall changes, for instance, the monsoon comes on 22nd May, for instance. Now in different states, suddenly we get to report that there is a deficiency in monsoon rainfall. That affects the cropping of important crops. Then suddenly you realize that in some area there is a disaster that has happened. So a lot of sowing that has been done, the field is destroyed. So I think the research has to focus on crop-wise, region-wise impact of climate change, especially monsoon. And this last point, Sachin sir, I wanted to mention here is that the National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture, this is an ICAR flagship network project. I think you can work with them, you can get a lot of primary information from Indian Council of Agriculture Research NICRA project. And it conducted a district-level risk and vulnerability assessment of agriculture to climate change for 651 predominantly agricultural districts, as per the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Protocols. A total of 109 districts are categorized as very high, and 201 districts are as highly vulnerable. So if you just add up 330, that means that almost half of India is considered vulnerable to this climate change. So I think we need to scale up our effort to understand, and I think social scientists need to do more research in terms of how these changes, and these are of course changes which have a variable impact on the ground in different regions of the country, how that is affecting the agrarian economy. And with that, the migration issue that you had mentioned, also very important. Sundarban, for instance, is the worst affected, climate-affected region in the country. So how that is affecting migration, agrarian economy, farms' income, this is something I think that the sociologists and social scientists should do extensive research on.
And perhaps we need also to work with the scientists, of course. Technology we just touched upon. We have not. We can discuss more. I have time for 2 questions. That's the minimum we ask. So we have 2 questions, precise ones, in fact, that we're looking for. Sir, Mike. दोनों एक साथ ले लें सवाल? Yeah, we'll take both questions together. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for this important discussion. I don't have a question, but I have a comment, and that comment actually needs some sort of thinking. So looking at the speed, urgency, and scale of measures that are needed. Why I'm saying that? Because I'm from the Pacific island, and that's the most affected area. I will just give you an example of a country like Nauru. So 50 years ago, there was no discussion about climate change, so they were very happily living there. No, for them, the discussion is to leave the place. So that country will not exist 40 years from now. So Australia has already planned their exit from that small island. So what I'm trying to emphasize is that all these measures that we are talking about, there is urgency, so speed, and the scale of measures that we need is, we have to think beyond that. So very urgent.
Yeah, very important caution, in fact, for all of us. So there's one more question, if there is in the hall. Yeah. Observation, comment. There's none because we'll take this to discussions later on. We're already running late. Thank you so much, each one of you. As I said in the beginning, extremely critical subject to talk about. Of course, Indo-Pacific has a long coastlines. We have not talked about the economy based on the water, and the dairy, and the water life that is a part of all that, and that has a lot of risk with the climate. But I think wherever we are, context-bound studies and new questions that we need to ask, and make climate adaptability integral to agriculture and agricultural practices and agricultural discourses, and as well as open up discussions and conversations and collaborations across disciplines, especially people who are responsible to make those technologies and studies on the technologies. They to have conversation with social scientists. That's something that we look forward to. Thank you so much, each one of you, for your wonderful presentations, and the audience for being patiently listening to this panel. Yes. Thank you, all of you.
I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists, and I would request Professor Singh to hand over a token of thank you to all our esteemed panelists. Thank you. I would like to start with Professor Vishandass. Himanshu, Shekhar sir. And Sachin sir. Once again, a very warm thank you to Professor Singh, Himanshu sir, Ashok sir, and Sachin sir.